Hi everybody, my name is Yavar. I have a bachelor's degree in software development and I'm also certified ISTQB certified. The purpose of this video is to basically show my automation testing framework for e-commerce web application. I'm just going to go through the web application itself, how it works. I'm going to go over the manual test cases that I've created, and then I'll go over my automation framework and I'll run the test and we'll go over the results. So this is the home page of the web application. In the web application you have an admin portal, you have a customer portal, you have a seller portal, and you have a delivery person's portal. This web application is similar to Amazon, where you could register as a seller, add a product. You could register as a customer and purchase that product. You could register you could log in as a seller and assign a delivery person to that order, and then you could log in as a delivery driver and update the status of the delivery for that order. The way that it works is you would register as a seller, register as a customer, and I'm going to log into the admin to show you the functionalities of the admin portal. So this is the admin dashboard, and as an admin you could register another admin. You could add a product category, you could view all orders, you could view all products, you could view all categories, all sellers, all deliveries, as well as all the customers. So that's the admin portal. Now if we go into the seller portal, and as a seller, you can view all the seller's orders. You can register a delivery driver. You can view any delivery drivers that you've created yourself. You could add a product. You can view all your products. This is a demo product, and that's pretty much for the seller portal. Now if we take a look at the customer's portal, for a customer you could view the cart, my order, you could view a product itself. Okay, you could add it to the cart and actually make a purchase. So I'll basically walk you through the process of how the application would work. Okay, and as a customer I would view a product, I would add it to the cart, I would check out, and I would put my payment details. I get a confirmation of the order, and if I go to my orders, that order is placed with a unique ID. The delivery person is pending, the delivery contact is pending, and the delivery time is pending. Now if I log in on the seller's portal for that product that was just purchased, and I go to seller orders, you'll see that the order came through over here. Same deal with the delivery person, because we haven't assigned any delivery person to it.
Now this is where I can go ahead and assign a delivery person. I would select a delivery person from that drop down. Since we have not created a delivery person, okay, we're gonna go ahead and register a delivery person. I'm just gonna name it delivery. I'm gonna register the delivery person. Okay. Now if you go to the seller's orders now, we assign a delivery. We're able to assign that delivery that delivery person that we just created. Now if we refresh it, okay, you can see the delivery person has been assigned, and it's been assigned over here. Now the delivery time is still processing because we haven't yet delivered the product. Now if we log in as the delivery person, okay, we go to my delivery orders, it's going to show up here because we've assigned it to that delivery driver. And if we hit the update status, we could actually choose the day that it was delivered, the date, and we're going to say afternoon, and update this and select the status. It's going to be delivered, and we're going to update the status. It still says processing, takes a bit of time. We're going to refresh. Oops, I don't think that I pressed it, maybe. Let's take a look. There we go. Delivered, afternoon. And now if we go back to the customer will be able to view the status of their delivery as well. My orders, there we go, it's been delivered. So that's the whole gist of the application. Okay. Now I'm just gonna go over the manual test cases that I've created for this. Now I've created for each of the pages, I've created modules. I've created component some testing each of the components of each page. For example, if you go to registration page, we're gonna test each individual fields. For example, if I enter a character that's not allowed, it's gonna pop up an error. If for the email ID, if I'm missing the @ it's gonna provide that error. These are the things that I'm testing for. And throughout all of so I'm doing that for the customer registration, all the forms and buttons as well. I've also designed these test cases based on the equivalence partitioning, covering both the invalid as well as the valid partitioning. And I've also created these test cases using a 2-point BVA. For modules that require a higher level of security, I've used 3-point BVA. So these are the component tests that I've created for each modules, and I've created an integration test as well. These are tests that that are testing two different modules, how they interact with each other. For example, the admin login integration, the admin category creation integration, as well as the admin customer integration, that kind of thing. So moving on from the integration test cases, I've also created full end-to-end test cases, okay? The end-to-end test cases, they're all positive test cases. The end-to-end test cases, you don't ever want to basically create negative test cases, okay? Because these are test cases that are going through the user flow of how the application should work. So for example, this test scenario right here is going to verify the admin account creation, admin login, and the admin category creation all in one go. This one is going to verify basically the seller account, that we can create a seller account, log in with that same seller account, and create a product, and so forth. So these are the way that I've designed the test cases, the manual test cases. Okay, now moving on to the actual testing framework. I've used the technology that I chose to use was the programming language for it was Java. I'm versatile in other languages as well, but this was my choice that I used for this product. For browser automation, I've used Selenium. Selenium is known to be compatible with not only Java but other testing languages. And for assertion, for testing framework, I've used TestNG. Again, you could use JUnit, whatever your preference is. And the way that I've designed my framework is I've chose to use the page object model. Okay, I'll talk about that more when we dive into my code. Moving on to my code itself. Okay, these are all the page objects that I've created, and we have one main page object, which is going to be the home page, which is going to be the base page, where every other page is going to extend off of that page. So we're able to get access to the driver, to as well as the WebDriver wait. Okay, now one thing that I want to point out is that I came across is, if I don't know if you've noticed, but if we go ahead and log in, let's say for example as a seller, this would be the base page. Okay, now if we log in as a seller, right, we have a header right here, and this is the seller header. Now if we go to seller orders, we have the same seller header. If we go to register delivery, it's going to have the same seller header. These are all different pages with the same headers. Okay, now it's the same thing with the customer portal as well as the admin portal. They all have their own specific headers. Now all of these pages, the base page would actually be the main page. All the other pages would extend the base page, so we can maintain access to these elements right here. And if you take a look, let's say for example at the seller dashboard pages after we log in, because we need access to the header that was at the top, what I ended up doing was, instead of extending the base page, I've created a seller header, and I would have all the pages, for example the seller orders page, all the pages in the seller, for the seller portal to extend the seller header, and then have the seller header extend the base page, so we're still maintaining access to the driver. Now you could have argued and said, well, why didn't you just extend the base page and the seller header? If you're familiar with Java, you cannot extend more than one page. You can only maintain one extension. Okay, you can only extend one page. So that was my go-to preference to it. I would create a main seller header for all the pages across the seller portal, and I would have that seller header extend the base page. So it's all the page objects are always in sync with each other. Okay, now I'll talk about the base page itself. Okay, now this is the constructor, and we've created the weights. I've chosen to use an explicit weight. You have an implicit weight, you have an explicit weight, and you have a fluent weight. Okay, which one do you use? For me personally, for this project, I've chosen to use an explicit wait so that I can add the wait when and where I need it in my code. Now, in a team setting, what you would want to do is decide based on the project. It will be a collective effort, and choose what kind of weight you want to use. Okay, it will be a collective effort between you and your coworkers. Okay, this is the page factory, so as soon as that constructor gets loaded, it's gonna bind the web elements to those variables right here, so we could perform any action that we want on them. And these are the weights that I created for them. We have a wait for element to appear, which we can pass in the element itself or the locator, and that kind of thing. Okay, now for the weights, since this is the parent class, all the other child page object have access to them. Okay, now one of the challenges that I've faced personally is actually on the login page right here. If you've taken notice, when I log in, we have one login page where we could log in as an admin, customer, seller, and delivery person. Okay, now based on what role we choose, when we hit that login button, it's gonna return either the admin dashboard page or the customer dashboard page or the seller dashboard page or the delivery person dashboard page. Okay, so the way that I'm built my system is the framework is basically when I click on a button that's going to return another page, I have that method return that page itself so I could catch it in my test case. Okay, with this login button is I don't know which page it's going to return. It's all based on what we're logging in as, admin, customer, or seller. Okay, the way that I've chosen to come around this, to basically work this out, is to have it return a generic type. Okay, if you're taking a look, the admin page, the customer, the seller, and the delivery person, all of their dashboard page, they have one thing in common, and they all extend the base page. Okay, so we're returning a generic that's going to extend the base page. You have to mention that, and that's the generic. Okay, now I'm going to pass in, when I click that button, I need to pass in a class name. Why am I doing this? Because I need to explicitly state what class, what object of what class I want it to return. So as of when I'm making the call, for example, let's take a look right here. Login, click login button on login page. I need to explicitly say that, hey, I'm logging in as an admin. I'm expecting it to return a new object of the admin dashboard class. When I pass that in to this object, okay, and we click the login button, we're gonna put this code inside a try catch. Okay, we're gonna get the class, we're gonna access the class name, we're gonna get the declared constructor on it. Okay, and we're gonna create a new instance passing the current driver in there, and we're gonna return that. Essentially, we're returning a new object of that class, which is what we want. So now it's dynamic. Alright, so whenever we're logging in from our test case, let's say if I was logging in as a customer, I would put in customer dashboard page, and this is what I'm expecting. Right now it's showing an error because I have a admin dashboard page, which is not what it's expecting. Okay, but logged in as a admin, so the admin dashboard page. Okay, so that's how I was able to get around that. That's one common way to do that. That would be my page object. I also want to talk about the never stale element that I've created. So a lot of times when you're working with Selenium, when you're on an element itself,
when you're on the page itself and you've moved away from that page and you come back to it and you try to click on a button, you're going to get the stale element reference exception. What that means is initially Selenium was able to create that link between the web element and the locator, but since you've moved away from that page and you came back, that link is now broken. So whenever I'm running my code and I'm running into the stale element reference exception, I would use this method, this static method right here. I would pass in the current driver, I would pass in the element in question, and I would pass in the locator for that element. So I'm gonna put that in a while loop, and it's gonna try it for a maximum of 4 times. We're gonna try and click that element, and if we get the stale element reference exception, we're gonna use the driver to find it again, to get a fresh find, basically, to try and rebind it. Okay, it's gonna do that to a maximum of 4 times, and it works really well. Okay, now in my page object itself, if you've taken a look at the top where the page factory actually is gonna bind the elements to these variables right here. Now if you've taken a look, I've used quite a bit of locators here, like ID, CSS, XPath. By far, as a general rule of thumb, you should always use IDs because IDs are unique and you can never go wrong with them. I would also let's say if for any reason, the reason why I chose to use one with ID, one with XPath and name, it's for demonstration purposes, but also the application does not have IDs for all the elements, so I had to use these other ones. So in a case where you don't have IDs, you could use XPath or CSS, but in a company, the QA department should always have a clear line of communication with the development team, where if a web element is missing a particular ID, you could just shoot them a message and say, hey, can you add an ID on that specific web element and send me the ID. That would be the most optimal solution, because with an ID you can never go wrong. It's unique, it will always find it by the ID. Okay, for example, if you use an XPath later on down the road, if that link, if a div is gone, for example, it's going to break that path, and you'll get a element not found exception. Okay, now I want to go ahead to the test area. Okay, this is the base page for the test area, and we have a before method right here, and what that does is before each test case, this is one test case, this is another one, before each and every test case it's going to run that before element. Okay, and it's going to run that launch application, and the launch application is going to set the configuration. Okay, which is this right here. It's gonna create a new read config object, and what that does, the read config, is actually reads off the configuration properties file, and it's gonna be able to get the default browser, get the base URL, which is right here. This is the base URL, the default, and the default browser. Okay, so this is gonna get that, and we're gonna assign it to the base URL. Now the base URL would basically be, if in the CLI we're not mentioning the base URL, we're not explicitly stating the base URL, it's gonna get it from the default one, which is the base URL in the configuration file. Same thing for the browser. If we did not specifically mention in the CLI what browser we want to use, it's going to get the default one that's in the config file. Okay, so after setting the configuration, it's going to initialize a driver, which is going to take it right here, and if the browser is equal to Chrome,
it's gonna create the Chrome options with all these options. And we've also mentioned that if it contains headless, okay, we want to make sure that we have that option added in the Chrome options. Headless basically means that it's not going to invoke the browser when it runs. It's going to run in the background. You would want to use this if you wanted to run really fast, because it's not really invoking the browser. It's running it on the back end. Okay, you're just not going to see your Chrome open up and actually perform the action, but it's actually doing so in the back end. We also have the Firefox. If the browser contains the Firefox, it's gonna create the driver, the web driver, the Firefox web driver, also Safari. Okay, and it's gonna return the driver. After initializing the driver, we're gonna assign it to the base page, which is going to be protected because all the other test cases are going to extend the base, and we're going to maintain access to the base page. The web driver, it will also be protected so that the child classes of that class will have access to the driver as well. Okay, we're going to create that new object. We're going to say base page, go to the URL, and we're going to return that base page. Okay, now after each and every method, it's going to quit the driver, because every time we want to make sure that it's running on a fresh start. We're quitting the driver for after each test case, and then we're reopening a fresh new one, starting all over. Okay, now after my suite runs, I want to make sure that I'm cleaning the database. Okay, because there's going to be a lot of data that's going to go into the database, so this takes care of that. Okay, the clean database would actually run the static method where it's going to make a connection to the database, and it's going to delete everything except for the ones that I need. Okay, the default ones. Now if you take a look, all of my test cases are going to extend the base page. So we have access to the driver, we have access to the base page. Okay, here we go. That being said, I want to talk about listeners. Before I talk about the listeners, let me talk about the reporting side. I've chosen to use extent report. Okay, and what that does is this static method actually returns an object of the extent report. We're creating the reporter right here. Okay, we're setting some configuration settings where we're adding the document title, the reporters, and the report name. We're also creating an extent report, which is what we're going to return, and we're attaching the reporter to it, and we're going to set the actual system information such as the tester, as well as the tester's name. We're going to return that object. Okay, now in the listener itself, we're going to create that extent report, and we're going to get that object that we just created in the static method. Okay, and we're also creating an extent test and a thread.local. Thread.local is basically like a hash set. What this does is when you're running tests in parallel, okay, if you did not have the thread local, what would happen would be if you have a test failure, or the throwable, or when you would get a screenshot of a test case, that a test that failed, it would attach it to the wrong one because it's running multiple tests at once. It's going to get everything mixed up. Okay, now with the thread local, what it does is every time the test starts, it actually creates the test and set it inside that thread local. Okay, so now when the test is successful, right, it's going to go inside of that thread local. It's going to get that specific test with that unique ID, unique key, and it's going to assign the log to it. So it has no way of assigning a screenshot or a log to a test that it does not belong to. I hope that makes sense. Same thing with the failure, okay? With the failure, it's actually gonna get a screenshot. So what I want to talk about the get screenshot, okay? So with the get screenshot is it actually takes a test case and a WebDriver, and we take a screenshot of the current WebDriver where it's at. We're gonna save that. We're gonna take that screenshot as a file in SRC. We want to create a destination path as well as with the test case name, and we're going to copy it from the source to the destination, and we want to make sure we return the absolute path of the destination. Okay, so we're returning a string here. So when we get that string for the path, we're able to utilize it on the failure right here. So when the test fails, again, thread local, we're going to get that specific test, we're going to fail it, and we're going to get the throwable, why it failed. Okay, now we're going to get the current driver. We're going to try the following. We're going to get the screenshot path. We're going to pass in the test case name with the driver. Now the file path has the path to the screenshot that was taken, and we're going to attach it to the test, so that way it's going to show up in the report itself. Moving on finish, we have to make sure that we flush the report itself, the test, okay, the extent. Hope that makes sense. One other thing that I want to talk about is if you look at my component test cases, okay, let's say admin registration or registration, for example, where I'm testing each of these individual fields. Now all the tests are going to be extremely similar except for the field that I'm testing and the data itself. So I felt the need, I did not want to create a lot of duplicated test cases. So what I ended up doing was I created an Excel sheet, okay, with all the test data. This is for first name, last name with this sheet would actually be testing the first name field. This is going to be the last name, each sheet, okay, and I would use the data provider. This is data driven test, okay, if you're not familiar. I would use data provider, and what that does is it's going to basically data provider, it's going to basically access the Excel sheet and you return it as a two-dimensional array, and it's gonna run the test. Okay, now to be able to pass in the sheet name as well as the file path, I've had to create my own custom annotation where I pass in the sheet name and the file path, and I mention it over here when I call it. Like for example, this test case, I would need the sheet name city inside that Excel sheet, and what that will do is I will get it, or I will catch it over here, method.get annotation. We're passing the method over here as a parameter, and then we're able to access info.get file path and info.get sheet name, so we know exactly what sheet name we're getting and what Excel file we're getting. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I've also included a retry This is for test cases that are known to be flaky. It is well known, it happens a lot. And the retry analyzer would basically, this would actually perform, if you know a test that is known to be flaky, you would make sure you have a retry on that test case, and this one is gonna perform it to a maximum of 3 times. That being said, I want to go ahead and talk about the suite itself. This is the component suite. Okay, we have the listener right here. We want to make sure we mention that. Okay, so for the reporting purposes, we also have this where the component suite, I'm running it in parallel because they're not dependent on each other. So I'm running it as a thread count of 2, and the parallel is going to run in classes, okay? And it's going to run these the component package. Now on the other hand, the integration suite, we have the listeners, but we don't have the parallel. The reason being is because they need to run in sequential order. If you're taking a look, in the cases, I do have a priority number 1, priority number 2. It's gonna run in order, and they all depend on each other. Okay, so I have them in order, and I have the end-to-end cases, which is basically the same thing. Okay, now this is wrong. End-to-end. Okay, got it. So I have this right here, the end-to-end test cases. We have the listener, and we have the end-to-end package class right here, the actual class. Okay, and now the end-to-end is also sequential. It's gonna run from priority 1 all the way to 2, 3, and 4. In the pom.xml, I've created the profiles for them with a profile ID. I also have a regression XML suite where it's gonna run everything. Okay, now this is a profile for the component, and it's gonna run the component XML. This is a profile for the integration, and it's gonna run the integration XML. And this is a profile for the end-to-end, and it's gonna run the end-to-end XML. So this is very important. So when you run the mv test command, you want to make sure you mention the profile. So I'm just going to run the test case. I'm not going to run the component suite right now because it has over 250 test cases. It's going to take a very long time. I'm going to run the integration test case. We're going to take a look at the result quickly, and after that I'm going to run the end-to-end test case to make sure that everything runs smoothly, and then I will go over the result. Okay, so the way you want to do this is mvn test -p for profile. We want to make sure we mention the profile that we just talked about, integration -d. We want to make sure we mention the browser. If you don't mention the browser, like I've said at the beginning of the video, it's going to use the default browser that is set in the configuration property file. Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward through this. You feel free to slow it down if you want to, and I'm gonna resume the normal speed as soon as it finishes. Alright guys, test is done. So we do have a few failures like we were expecting. I was expecting because a few of the modules does not meet the requirements. So we'll take a look at the results. Okay, this is the extent report. If you're taking a look over here, we have the screenshot attached for that failure, and this is basically, it allowed the user to log in with username containing a leading white space. Same thing with this one with the trailing white space, that kind of thing. Okay, so we do have all the test cases right here. All these ones are passes. Okay, so it's very extremely, all the failures have screenshots attached with them. Okay, so I'm just gonna run all the screenshots. I'm going to run the end-to-end test case now. And again, I'll fast forward through it. Feel free to slow down the playback if you want, and I'll resume once it's done. Alright, we're done with the end-to-end test case, and it ran a total of 6 test cases and 0 failures, which was what I was expecting. And we're gonna take a look at the report. And these are all the test cases that passed. End-to-end test cases. Again, those end-to-end test cases, they're all positive test cases going from one end to the other. Let's say, for example, for the customer itself, you would go from creating the customer account, logging in, adding a product to the cart, checking out, and confirming the order was placed on your My Order page. That will be one full end-to-end test case. That's an example of it. Okay, I would like to take the time and thank everyone for watching. I'm currently working on the API testing for the same application using REST Assured. I'm going to create a video regarding that one as well. I'm gonna provide a link to this automation test case for the GitHub link for this automation test case in a link in the video in the description. Feel free to leave a comment, a like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.